Thanks everybody for joining. I'm Chris Henry with BizSpeed. We've been ORTEC's partner for 15 years, and this is part of our webinar series that's best practices. So we have a couple of more of these coming up, but the idea is for us to have a couple of ORTEC customers and BizSpeed customers. We provide the ORTEC mobile solution. We've done that for 15 years, particularly for bulk products, just to talk to customers and find out what they're doing from a best practices from a multi-compartment routing perspective. So I have two guests with me to talk. One is Jose Barajas from ORTEC, or from Dion and Sons, and the other is Kenny Green. So we'll go ahead and kind of quickly jump in and do some introductions. Jose, do you want to give a background on your role and also the Dion company and what you guys do from a logistics standpoint?
Sure. Dion's been in Long Beach and Southern California for about 90 plus years, and we do a variety of products, obviously fuel, lubes, DEF, racing fuel, and we have a strong base of customers that cover the Southern California area. My role is the operational technology lead, which is just a fancy title, says that I basically am the ORTEC super user and BizSpeed super user. So I've done all the documentation and training of every person that uses ORTEC and BizSpeed within the company. We have, I want to say, about close to 100 trucks in the Southern California area, and so it's been a fun ride, and we're almost done implementing the BizSpeed side for all of our trucks. We got one more facility to go. So
awesome.
In a nutshell, that's us.
That's great. And Kenny, we've worked with you for quite a while too. You want to give us your background and tell us about Master Builders?
Yep, sure. We've been a routing customer for almost 4 years now, right? So I'm with Master Builder Solutions. We serve the construction industry. Our routing journey, I guess, focused mainly in the U.S. and Canada. Our fleet of trailers in the U.S. and Canada makes around 13,000 trips a year, delivering liquid bulk chemicals to construction materials manufacturers.
And your role there?
Yep. So I'm the manager of supply chain excellence. Back when we first implemented our routing system 4 years ago, I was kind of the main project manager for that. And now today in this role, I'm kind of in charge of supply chain tech, right? So if that's ORTEC, BizSpeed, any other systems or solutions we want to implement to really improve our supply chain operations.
Awesome. And I've got Chris Tuttle on as well. Chris is my co-host. Chris and I have worked together for 10 plus years. Chris is with ORTEC. So Chris and I will be kind of conducting the interview. This is a panel discussion, so it's really not a big presentation. It's more of a chance for us to talk. But Chris, you want to do a quick intro for you as well?
Yeah, good afternoon. Chris Tuttle, the Director of Customer Impact for ORTEC. So we really focus on helping our customers with adoption and expansion, and have been in the energy field with you, Chris, for the last 10 years. So looking forward to the discussion today.
Yeah. And again, I said this is a panelist discussion, so we'll ask questions. I've got things structured, so we'll ask kind of in 4 broad categories. So strategy, people, processes, and technology. And Chris and I will cover both of those. If you have questions, please put them in the chat, and we'll make sure that we either get to them right during the discussion, or we've got time set aside at the end from a question standpoint. So probably the first idea is this: the goals are really to discuss the best practices and really get your real world experiences, but also to find out what you would do differently and what's next. So again, I mentioned this, it'll be strategy, people, process, and technology. So I'll stop this part of it and just get right into the questions here. So Jose, if you can start, if you can talk a little bit about how you guys started from a strategy standpoint. And we often hear people ask, or look for things like going paperless or saving 15% on their transportation cost or getting one more stop per day. What was Dion's background behind looking at what we think is the best in class multi-compartment, routing? And what was the background behind you guys looking at a new solution for this?
The main thing, obviously, they wanted to get away from the old paper routing. They were literally printing out every invoice for every driver, every customer on a daily basis, and having two people stand there and use a big old counter space to do all the routing. It was inefficient, obviously, because they weren't looking at the retain. So a lot of the thing was, capturing the retained and uh, you fully utilizing the compartments because we do fuel and we do lubes. That was a big impact on it. And then also because our big thing is customer focus with time windows, so meeting customer time windows and having somebody either keep all that information in a spreadsheet or in their head, um, putting it into a system, then would give us metrics that we could obviously see if we were winning or not, and how we could improve. So that was the main start of why we wanted to go to a solution. So.
And you guys are really focused on time windows. So some people are focused more on other things, but you want to talk a little bit about the time window aspect because you got some pretty tight delivery objectives, I think.
Yeah, we deal with a lot of obviously fleet fueling, and then also since we do a lot of the Shell distribution for all the their lubes, there's a lot of customers that they don't want us there when their fleet's not there, number one, and then they want us there when it's the least busy, especially like a Jiffy Lubes. I think when you guys came out for a ride along, you guys went and you saw the Jiffy Lubes where if you're not there by a certain time, it's almost impossible to get in there to make a delivery. So
Yeah.
we strategized around time windows, and one of the big things I'm sure we'll cover later, but it was just about the GIGO, getting all the information and the data, because without good data, good information, it doesn't matter what kind of routing system you'll have, you're going to fail with it. So we focus on customer service to make sure that we're there when they want us there to be able to fully utilize and fill their equipment.
And Kenny, what about you guys from a master builder standpoint? What was the background strategically to go to a multi-vehicle, multi-compartment routing solution?
Sure. So we had a homegrown system prior to implementing the ORTEC solution, but we were being sold from a prior owner. And so there was a very strong desire internally to push to kind of a more future-proof system, right? So we had a homegrown system that was maybe half integrated with our ERP system, and there was no one around to support that anymore, right? So we needed to get into a new system that was best in class, that would help us, service our customers better and improve their experience, and would be able to kind of be integrated with any future systems going forward and give us, like Jose mentioned, right, data that we didn't have before.
And I think from a fleet standpoint, it might be helpful. I mean, your fleet, I think it's a little over 150 trucks. Is that right?
Yep. So that was something else we were looking for too, ease of integrating carriers in the future. So we have operations in different parts of the US and Canada, and sometimes, we bring in new carriers to provide supplemental service in busier season, right? So something that they could easily integrate to also be fully digital. That was something else we were looking for.
Yeah, I think master builders, the other thing is that you have 3PL carriers that make your delivery. So you also have to integrate with them. There's some things that were slightly different there too, right?
Correct. Yeah. Yep.
So from a priority, we often look at three big areas for routing. One is operational efficiency, the other is customer service, and the third is data analytics. When you prioritize those, obviously they're all important. Like, how do you prioritize operational efficiency and customer service and analytics?
Sure, I can start with that one. So I think the operational efficiency piece helps you, get the money to go make the purchase for a system like this, right? So that's certainly important that you can show transportation savings, asset utilization's improvement. But at the end of the day, it's improving the customer service or customer experience and customer service. That was most important for us. We wanted to be able to offer paperless. We wanted to be able to improve our on-time delivery percentage. And we wanted, again, to really have that data. So I would say it was customer service, efficiency, and then the data analytics piece.
Then Jose, for you, like how does Dion look at, how do you prioritize operational efficiency and customer service and data analytics? I know you've got all three of those in the mix as well.
Yeah, the same. Obviously we start with customer service, like we mentioned. We want to meet what the customer demands of us. Making sure we have the right equipment, truck size, everything. And using ORTEC, we were able to put capabilities to our customers and to our trucks to help that. And then that also helped with our operational efficiency, because you don't want to send a truck that's not going to fit or be able to deliver at a customer. So it helps with that whole operational efficiency. And then being able to, like, go paperless, giving customers real-time information, real-time ETAs versus, yeah, the guy will be there when he gets there because we haven't been able to reach him type thing. So those, and then the analytics piece is you have to use that to be able to make sure the customer is being serviced properly and that you're operating efficiently. Otherwise, you're, again, just using a tool and not really utilizing the full capability of it.
What's one recommendation you'd have for somebody that wants to develop a strategy around optimization? So just off the top of your head, what do you think? I know you've talked about a few things to me, like the data side of it, but
Obviously the data side, you have to, obviously get the people that are going to be, we were talking earlier, and we'll get to it obviously with people, but it becomes more of a dispatch role to sort of a planner, analytics type of person, making sure, when we get to the technology side, you have good, strong people, but basically understanding what it is that your end goal is and work your way backwards. Because you can say you want to optimize, but what truly does that mean to your business, and how would that roll out with how many trucks you have and your personnel and the people, and do you have the right personnel to be able to accomplish that, or because otherwise you're just going to run into roadblocks. Change management obviously is a big piece of it, because if people aren't willing to change, which we know they aren't, I'm sure Kenny, you've experienced the same thing. You're going to fight it tooth and nail, and again, you can run the solution, but without everybody kind of working together and knowing that goal. But the data is the huge piece of it. Your data is obviously going to make or break your optimization, because your rules are based on what data you're giving it, and so you could get the optimizer could run, but your optimization may not actually be beneficial. It's actually, could make it worse for your company. So
yeah, because I think you guys changed the terms too, right? They went from dispatchers to planners, and so they're planners as opposed to just a dispatcher role too, right?
yeah, I know Kenny uses planners, we use planners, and then we also have we're leaning more towards, like I said, an analytical side, to where when they're running the solution, it's just not, okay, it did this, but then somebody's looking at it, and analyzing it to make sure that it does make sense, and that, the retain piece of it and all the other, components of what we're trying to do as a company are being met, because there's going to be the one-offs where somebody has to make a decision that the optimizer may have done, where we have to do a one-off or a special delivery type thing above something else. But it's no longer just pushing a button and walking away. It's, having somebody that has a little bit of analytical background to it, to understand that side of it.
And Kenny, how about you from a recommendation? You have one recommendation that you'd say when somebody's trying to develop a strategy for optimization, anything that you would want to comment on?
Sure. I think I would just echo with what Jose said, start with the end state and work backwards, right? So for us, that was a more like manage by exception goal, right? Where, planners are trusting the system to do a lot of kind of what they used to call their daily work, right? And they're more reviewing the output and making the strategic decisions, kind of based on the solution the system provides, right? So there's some key milestones getting to that point. And you want to make sure you have a good plan developed to get there.
I think, Chris, the next section is yours from a process standpoint.
Sure. Yeah. Let's move from strategy to more of the kind of the process, really the workflow that these companies go through. So, Jose, I'll start with you. It's a two-part question. Is, what was your biggest process challenges in getting started? And then now that you've been a few years in, do you still have any large challenges, or what are your next challenges that you face?
The biggest processes that when I started is because I actually came into the project. They hired me. It's going to be almost 5 years ago. Man, time flies. And they were ready to roll it out like a month after I got hired. And if both you guys remember, I was like, no, it's not working. It's not looking at our retain. It's not talking to the tablets. It's not, giving us real time gallons. So a lot of it was just, the process. That was our biggest challenge, was, making sure everything works. That's part of when you're doing a lot of this stuff, um, is like Kenny said, if you don't have your checks out there as to what you want in game, you can think it's ready to roll out. So that was the process. That was the biggest challenge that I had, was just making sure that everybody was on the same page between ORTEC and BizSpeed, to make sure that things were going back and forth. Spent a lot of time with ORTEC, making sure that the optimizer was capturing the previous retain, and utilizing the full compartment, and figuring out the capabilities as far as what we were putting on compartments and or trucks and things like that. And then the hard part has been the change management and the people side of it, because we went through a few org changes over the last few years, and I think finally we're on a steady um, you know direction now, where now we're going to actually circle back and re-implement and go to phase 2 of the optimizer. And instead of yes, it works, now it's everybody's doing it, and we're going to look at a centralized routing and all that stuff. So those are next steps for us.
Great. Kenny, how about you?
Yep. So our biggest challenges were kind of forced on us, right? So since we were going live with the new system at the same time as a bunch of other new systems, we were forced to do a big bang. So everyone going live at once, no opportunity to try it at a pilot site. And we were also forced to do this remote, because we went live right around April of 2020 when everything shut down. So there were a lot of late night Teams calls with folks at BizSpeed and ORTEC, making sure that the planners were utilizing the system correctly, making sure that dispatchers were, sending routes to drivers correctly. And there was a lot of desire to, hey, we need to just get this up and running right now, and we'll play catch up on the gaps, once we're stable, right? So that was definitely the biggest challenge at Go Live. So if you can avoid going live everywhere all at once, I would highly recommend that. But now, a few years in, the biggest challenge is, I would say, it's knowing when to challenge your own processes, right? People come up with workarounds to deal with configurations that might not be ideal, right? And it's understanding when to ask, hey, you really don't need to do that, right? We can actually have the system work for you, instead of force you to work to the system. So it's understanding your user needs, understanding the pain points they might be feeling, and even when you think things are running pretty well, right, there's always room for improvement. So knowing when you can challenge your own internal processes to have the system, do what you need it to.
So hearing both of you speak about that, I hear both of you talk about just the connectivity of the solution with existing technology and maybe partner vendors as well. If you were to kind of go back and see that now, would you do a little more testing, or UAT, or what could help you to maybe make sure that connectivity was there from the get-go?
Yeah, UAT always helps. Okay. Jose, you want to go ahead?
No, go ahead. I'll jump in after you.
Yep. I mean, UAT testing, right, and really end user testing, and getting that feedback from, the people who are using the system, internally planners or externally, drivers, really understanding what the key data points that you need are, who's touching them, and I guess what's working well for them and what's not. Right?
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. Like I said, I spent like the first, I want to say 9 months going back and forth testing and retesting. And then when we did roll it out, we rolled it out September of 2020. I had to wear my mask and my, protective suit but we did one site. We did San Diego. They had quite a large fleet. And we started with just the ORTEC side, where we were using the tablets just for the trips, and the drivers were manually entering stuff. Now that we've gone back to having Mobile Hub as the scanning solution, that would be the thing that I would change, is that we would have done both of them at the same time, to get better results and more, functionality, just because of being able to interact with it rather than using ORTEC Mobile Hub and a third party, which was like archaic and really hard to use and frustrating. So
Well, besides just the, the challenges you had at startup or current challenges now, was there any processes that needed to be started or created to help in this integration or this automation project that you guys had? And maybe Jose, you can start.
yeah, like I said, we had to get away from the whole paper thing. So I think the change management process, is something that we needed to push. And then understanding, again, going back to, the dispatcher role was just somebody, giving routes to drivers, versus now you're looking at a computer, trying to look at real time, trying to figure out what the driver has and be more interactive. So those processes were things that they weren't used to here, and so we've been pushing that a lot. Where it's like you have to look at the screen, you have to see what the driver's doing, you have to understand, is he running out of fuel, to, again, because if you're servicing customers, you have to be able to make those decisions on the fly rather than waiting for the customer to call yelling at you, or the driver saying, hey, I ran out of fuel and I'm coming back. Or so
You
those processes of change management were big for us.
You've
Yeah.
mentioned the retain. It might be worth talking about that, Jose, and kind of how, like, because obviously we're sending inventory snapshots back, but to let people know what you've done with that, because that wasn't an initial implementation, but came in later. But I think you guys have used that a fair amount, right?
Yeah, we use the retain on a daily basis to see what the drivers with ORTEC they added, thanks to Glenn, my buddy Glenn. I see you on there. So shout out to Glenn. Um, ORTEC added the compartment visibility piece to us, so we're able to see what's on the current route, and then what is scheduled for the next route. So we can see, is the if compartment 2 has died for the next route. We want to make sure that the system's doing what it needs to, and or so that way we can let the driver know, go ahead and leave that on there rather than dropping retain. And then that way the next driver is ready to go. So, and then with the lubes, same thing, because we bring those back if obviously they didn't utilize it all, rather than empty the compartments out and start fresh every day, which cuts takes a lot of man hours to load unload. And then safety wise too, we were able to look at the retain and utilizing Mobile Hub now with the scanners, and then ORTEC's compartment thing, we're able to really utilize that a little better with the retain.
Would you say that was maybe one of your biggest challenges when you talk about multi-compartment routing, was the retain, or were there other challenges that were just as big?
That was the main one, just because before, it was going off of what the dispatcher was saying, and then half the time they weren't even paying attention. So drivers were either coming back and dropping it, and or like at our satellite facilities, they don't have the capability of some of the refineries being close by, and or having to drop the product at 10 miles away versus at their yard like they do here in Long Beach. So that made it a big mess, where drivers were leaving product on the truck and they didn't know, because they were putting it on piece of papers, and obviously you know how that goes. Some guys do it better than others. There was no kind of follow up and management on that. With the system, you're able to see it and able to hold not only the driver accountable, but also the planner and dispatcher to say, hey, why is this going on? So
Katie, how about master builders? What are some of the difficult overall aspects of multi-compartment routing for you guys?
Sure. For us, I guess retain is one, because retain tends to lead to out of route stops, right? Where drivers then are going somewhere where they weren't originally intending to go. So that kind of impacts the plan for the next set of routes, right? So it's really understanding how all of these decisions work together. And it's still a challenge for us, right? But we're getting better at it every day.
Good. Do you have any issues with add-on orders? And if so, how do you handle them today?
Yep. So that's definitely still an issue. Right now they're handled very manually, a lot of phone calls and figuring out where the driver can go, and then they're sending in a paper ticket after the fact, right? So we're working on, it's definitely on our radar for this year, hopefully rolling out through Forms and BizSpeed a solution to capture those events when they happen, right? And sending all the relevant information then back to kind of the home office so we can create an on the fly order and bill out customers quickly with little disruption. So
How does Dion handle that, Jose, the add-on orders?
Um, it depends on the facility. Some facilities are better than others, but that's something we are improving. But it's good because again, with ORTEC and now with the speed scanning solution, we're able to add the orders with the trucks that have the proper retain. And there are instances where we have to send another driver to refuel it just because of time or whatever the case is to move product to another truck. So we're able to do it real time and make sure that we're either putting it to the right driver that's in the area and or um, incorporating another driver to assist with that. It's actually even on the lube side we're able to do that because we send out some extra. We fill our compartments full with some of the standard lubes just because we know that there are instances where a customer is going to call us that they need a certain 5W20 versus and one of the drivers in that area does have it. So it's actually been a lot easier to do the add-ons and the specials that get called in.
Good. And maybe just one last thing. What's one recommendation that you would have for processes that you maybe haven't mentioned already that comes to mind?
I know that ORTEC's working on a kind of like a what if web version solution. We actually, when we started this, we have a test environment. So we basically run a lot of stuff through the test environment where we do a lot of what if scenarios where we'll run different solutions. We'll take trucks out. We'll do our own what if solution and then try to see how we can improve. And then, like I said, I don't know if it'll be this year or beginning of next year where we'll centralize and then we'll start looking at what facility can best deliver these customers. Where right now it's kind of there is some overlap and we send that out during our KPIs and things like that, but those are things that we're starting to focus to now where we'll have ORTEC give us that solution is to say, hey, yeah, this is an old Long Beach customer, but Colton is better to serve them because of proximity and things like that. So having that test environment's been a good thing for us because we can do different things. We test obviously everything with new builds from BizSpeed or new updates that ORTEC may have, and I want to make sure they're tested before I push them out to the drivers with if it's a new app feature or if we've asked for something to help service our customers better.
Great. Kenny, any other recommendations?
yeah, sure. I would say build collaboration and transparency into your processes, right? So one of the things we did was we implemented like a weekly kind of regional call where the planners are speaking with some of the sales guys out in the field, right? And getting a feel for, hey, what pain are you feeling? And this is how I'm going to help you address that then, right? Which customers need product? All right, this is what we can do to get it there. So just forcing people to talk that weren't really talking before and being clear about how we're using the system to better serve everyone.
Great. Thank you. I'll go ahead and pass it back over to Chris so for the next topic of people.
Yeah, so we had a question come in. What was your biggest hurdle to change management and how did you overcome it, especially for the field ops?
That's something that we battle daily, Glenn. So I tell the old story that one of my old bosses back in the day, he put on the clip from Untouchables. I don't know if you guys remember that, where Robert De Niro, he's playing Al Capone, does the whole baseball thing. I talk about baseball. He said, "This is change management." Of course, you can't do that nowadays, but it's one of those things where we've started to, like Kenny alluded to, we started to with our metrics is started to actually ask them, okay, you're getting the metrics. What are you guys doing with it? Because we don't see improvement, and we don't see that you guys are actually doing anything with this stuff. So it's actually starting to have those calls and meetings, and then holding the drivers accountable, where we started posting, when they weren't scanning barcodes or they were doing something, trying to do a pump and print, because now we see all that information. We send it to the facilities and to the managers, and so they started posting it on the boards, and drivers call now and like, "Hey, I don't want to be on that list. How can you help me?" And the same thing with the planners now, so we've made it kind of a global mass thing to where we put everybody's dirty laundry out there, and it seems to help because they don't want to be on the negative list. So
What about you, Kenny? What were the biggest hurdles that you guys had, and especially on the field side?
Sure. So I guess on the field side, it was interesting that we were seeing hurdles because we were actually giving them more information than they were ever used to before. So I guess the biggest change was, you give an inch and people always wanted more. So it was just learning how to deal with those expectations, right? Hey, now you know what's coming, and making sure that everyone performed to that, because now there was an expectation set, whereas before it was kind of a, here's the tentative plan, wait and see what happens. So it was building out other tools then to kind of let these people who could ask us a bunch of questions kind of self-service. Here's where you can follow up on, did that driver arrive at that stop or not, right? So using the data that came from ORTEC, from BizSpeed, to address these kind of newer concerns that were coming up. And then just internally, with the planners, right, the biggest change for them was probably getting used to like a new UI, totally different interface, where before they were used to like dragging and dropping from a map, and now they kind of had to do things a little differently. So it was just spending one-on-one time with them. We had some of the quicker to learn colleagues helping out some of the ones who were struggling a little bit. So it was collaborative there. A lot of time with ORTEC users, with our internal users, to make sure everyone was comfortable.
One of the things we talked about when we were prepping with you guys on this, what are you looking for when you hire planners now? Like what is the background behind your hiring of planners, and what type of skills or background do you look for with them?
like I mentioned before, it's gone more from, hey, I've been in transportation or driver for 20 years, to obviously, do you know a little bit about computer? I mean, I can train anybody that's willing to be trained, that's got an open mind to be trained, but also some of the basic analytical stuff of looking at a route and not just saying, hey, it looks good because I don't see any violations, but does it make sense on top of that, and how is it going to impact? Because obviously the solution will change as the driver that is on the current truck, and or as the trip starts, could run into different hiccups out there. So it's a matter of being able to look at it and then quickly analyze. So it's like I said, a little bit of analytical background, and or the willingness to learn. I just hired somebody on my team. She was on the dispatch admin side, was kind of reconciling stuff for us on the back end, but looking at how she was processing stuff and being able to talk her through some of the things, seeing that she had that a little bit of an analytical background. So it's like, this makes perfect sense to like bring her on versus, going and hiring an old driver that I've been doing it 20 years, because then you're dealing with, you know, this is the way we've always done it mentality versus, yeah, but
Right.
that's not the way it works anymore.
So more analytical skills, it sounds like.
Yeah, some of the a
Yeah.
lot of the more analytical stuff.
And what about you, Kenny, from a planner standpoint? What does master builders look for?
Yeah, I would echo that, right? Someone who's able to kind of juggle competing priorities, right? You're getting a bunch of guys in the field who say, hey, my customer needs this product yesterday, right? And they're all vouching for their own customers. So it's someone who can look at the big picture and say, all right, if I have so many trucks that can go to those areas, this is really the best plan to service that. And then the flip of that, right? When there aren't a bunch of people screaming for attention, right? But you have trucks that need to get utilized, in an efficient way, so you're not just really wasting money, right? understanding the trade-off between, do I fill up a load or send it kind of a little less than ideally full to service orders, right? So someone who can think bigger picture, and understand how different decisions might impact the outcome.
One of the questions, I don't know if you want to start with this, Kenny, was have you found that the analytics provided your salesmen incentives to reach out to customers to adjust tank sizes to get better, efficiency goals? Have you guys looked at adjusting tank sizes?
Yeah, I would say adjusting tank sizes, or at least the parameters we use to manage them. When we do use telemetry, maybe the reorder point at that customer isn't intelligently set based on history, right? So yeah, it's given us the firepower to challenge the field to, hey, help us help you, right?
Hey, Jose, what about you? I think you guys have looked at, I know you've looked at tank sizes, so.
We use the analytics not only for the operational side, but to the sales reps. So we send it out to the sales team. And then also now with the mobile hub solution on our trucks, customers call us and say, hey, did this happen? So we're even able to provide them GPS map points and, when the driver started, ended, different things like that. And then not to, just to plug one of your things, as we're using your sales app, which we've provided to Scott Angleton, who used to be on our team, but now he's more on the sales side, where you can use that and actually go on site, scan barcodes, update the information there, and it updates it to us. So that's one of the things we've been doing, is doing a big barcode cleanup and tank size cleanup, because then that way the customers, especially nowadays, customers are nickel and diming of like, hey, this was 20 gallons that you put on there, and there's no way that unit could hold this amount. And so we're able to update that, give them real-time information, and give more information to the sales rep, to go out to the customer and say, look, this is not only the service we can provide, but we can update all your information to make sure we're only scanning and filling the units that you asked us to. So there's a lot of cool things that we've been able to do with the analytics side, with the the information we're getting.
And what about the one recommendation you have on the people side of things? So what would you recommend for people that are doing this?
I think you have to really break it down to them with what it is that the processes you're doing and the information that they're seeing, and then that you want the customer to see, where if they understand it, they understand how it impacts them. I think they take more ownership of it, more pride, versus just kind of pushing a button and it's, now it's the driver's fault because he didn't do what I told him to. So I think working together as a team and being able to they understand, and you explaining to them what's in it for them other than a job, and how we can make it better and serve customers better to, obviously increase our gallons, increase our profitability, and things like that, has really helped kind of steer our whole organization to a different level. So
I know one thing that Dion did is, ORTEC generates optimized routes, and we lock the drive. You have the option on the mobile to lock drivers in. You lock drivers into the route. And that, I think that was probably a big change too, right? Because before they could resequence themselves, but now they've got to go in the.
Yeah, now it's locked down, depending on the facility, just because of the control. And now that, like I said, now we have more of a support role functionality, analytic team. We're able to, if they have we can give them a pin to go out of route, but we pretty much keep it to where they are not allowed to go out of route, and unless we move it for them because of circumstances of they're running out of product, and or something else happened where we need to change their route. But yeah, we've locked it down. We've made it where they have to call us, or they we can see everything that's going on from their start stop, changing meter, messing with meters. So we're on them. So it makes it a lot easier and fun. But it also, with the customers, I think they see that our ETAs are more online with what we say. So
Yeah. Kenny, what about you? Any people recommendations you'd have from a people change management that you'd suggest?
Yeah, someone who's kind of able to separate the noise from what's real, right? Especially when you're dealing cross-functionally with with people, right? So, you get a sales guy calling in, hey, this order's hot, and you take a peek at the telemetry system and look in their tank, and you go, ask them, are you sure about that? Right? We just delivered yesterday, right? So making sure that everyone's on the same page, finding a person who's not afraid to, challenge back, obviously respectfully, right? But knows how to use the tools they have at their disposal, so everyone wins.
That's
Yep.
awesome. Chris, you want to
Yeah.
hit the last
Yeah.
couple of technology areas, and then we'll
Yeah.
open up
Moving to technology, maybe Jose, what was your team's technology background prior to ORTEC?
They knew how to turn on a computer. It was limited. Like I said, it was surprising to me that when I came on board that they were still printing out, the delivery tickets and using that to kind of route and give it to the drivers. And then, drivers would come back, especially the night drivers, they would come back with 2 or 3 orders and drop them on the counter, and nobody was even paying attention to that. So we were like failing miserably. So technology wise, they weren't the most robust of, not, and I don't think it was just because they didn't know. It's probably just because they didn't have to use systems. But as we kind of started, implementing ORTEC and Mobile Hub, we kind of started weeding out, those that were actually just there, collecting a paycheck versus ones that wanted to be there and be part of the success. And they saw, what we were doing going forward. And we've had quite a few changes within the different divisions, but it's been good changes, so, but yeah, we were very bare in terms of technology in our facilities.
How about your team, Kenny?
Yeah, I would say, even though we had kind of a homegrown routing system before, it was definitely putting our people on the right track. So they were fairly used to like the type of work that they were doing before and would be doing in the future. Like that wasn't changing too much. This was just kind of the next level, right? So I would say technologically the background was pretty strong, right? But using these newer systems kicked it up another year.
So what do you think are some good technology skills that you feel are important for like an integrated optimization solution today?
Sure. So I think having, daily system users who understand, I guess, the impact of clean data, right? That's important. So for us, customer hours, customer locations, trailer configurations, right? So being able to look at a plan and understand how, if one of those things isn't right, it might throw a wonky result that they need to go back and look at. And then I would say also you need someone who understands how these different integrated systems work together from end to end. Right? It's really hard to solve an issue if you're passing it off from team to team to team. You really need one person to kind of own the whole supply chain tech stack, I guess you could call it, right? From the time an order is placed until it's delivered, so that they can kind of run point whenever issues do come up.
So it kind of sounds like a mix of I know what's happening in operations and why that's important to be in the technology flow of the solution. Is that what you agree? Yeah. Jose, you see the same thing?
Yeah, like, basically that's kind of what my role was when I first started was, because I'm probably one of the few people that work with all aspects of the organization, from the accounting team all the way back to the billing team, and touch everything in between: the drivers, the warehouse, when we're loading our bulk trucks and things like that. So like Kenny said, having somebody that understands that, also making sure that your IT team, has set things up and that you're able to work with them in case you run into server issues and or system issues, and then having a great relationship, being, somebody that can speak with vendors, because I've been on a lot of calls with ORTEC when we initially started, and then also, Chris knows between me and Doug and now Josh, I think, they're my two best friends because I'm constantly on the calls with them. But having a good relationship to being able to identify the problem, but also being able to explain it to them and replicate it, and not just send them and say, hey, this is broke. But, giving details, screenshots, being able to communicate at the, highest level down to, communicating to a driver and saying, this is how you push the buttons to do what you need to do. So, like Kenny said, having somebody that is the owner of that whole process, but also being able to have a few people around them to, be able to support you and answer questions and be able to touch all sides of the business, because it does impact from customer setup to a customer being billed. If things aren't working properly, you're just getting frustrated with the systems, and your customers will be even more frustrated with you. So,
Yeah. And thinking about implementing new technology, obviously the overall goal is to improve business. Do you use any type of analytics to measure that impact that you're having on the business today?
for us, yeah, I mean, we constantly, like I said, we're constantly diving into the KPIs and everything that's done on a daily basis, and now more so, like I said, we're holding the divisions and the managers accountable to all that, and even the drivers to the level of the drivers. When they're calling, we've been able to restrict not only the users in ORTEC by I've built different UIs for the user. So, customer service has a different UI than, dispatch, et cetera. And then even within the dispatch and planners, they have different UIs. So being able to restrict and not allow certain people to do things. And then also, showing them through KPIs and all the metrics that we have, the impact positively or negatively that we have with customers and the business.
Kenny, does Master Builders use some type of analytics today?
Yeah. So I would say, given a lot of the supply chain challenges we had in 21, 22, and 23, we were really using the analytics to say, well, does this match what we are feeling, right? So we would notice, costs on routes were going up, or we were less efficient than we wanted to be because our plants were, running really hand to mouth from our suppliers out to our customers, right? So now that things have kind of stabilized from a supply chain fulfillment standpoint, we're really starting to use those analytics to say, okay, where do we need to be? Right? And how are we going to get there? So yes, they've been a key piece of that.
Great. So
Yeah, and how many times a week and all that stuff are you going versus going every day because
Right.
somebody wants us to go there every day.
Exactly.
So what would you say your recommendation is for someone that wants to consider technology?
I would say, again, someone who, you can't emphasize enough the end-to-end process, right? You think it's only going to touch a few systems, but then, an order doesn't show up, or the realization quantities don't come back in the way you would expect. And now the company's missing revenue, right? And you have to be able to account for it. So someone who really understands, hey, I know where I can get that data, right? Maybe the driver didn't put it in properly, but it lives somewhere else. Let me grab it for you, right? And it really impacts every area of the organization. So you need to understand what those touch points are, what the inputs, outputs are, and how you're going to get them if things don't go like according to plan.
Yeah, the other piece of it that I could add to it, and Chris knows this, documentation of training and or where to go look for things. So I've been building a bunch of training documents that are at the user level, the driver level, the facility level, the billing level. So that way, like Kenny said, if you have an order that didn't come from your ERP, or something wasn't entered correctly by the driver, we know where to find that data. We know how to get to it. And if not, we have cheat sheets that, here's where you can go, kind of like your FAQ stuff. So I've spent a lot of time, doing a lot of that documentation, and really making it as simple as possible, so that when you're looking at it, it's basically a step-by-step process with a lot of detail. And I think that that's important, so that because if turnover, vacation, whatever the case may be, somebody can step in there and not be a deer in headlights, but they can look at the documentation and go, oh, okay, I know where I need to go, type thing. So
Yeah, great. Thanks, guys.
I think that was probably a good transition too. So we've had a few questions in the Q&A, and we've asked them as we've gone along. So we're running up kind of against the time here, but the next series will be next month, and we're going to talk about analytics in more detail there. And I know both of you and your companies have done a lot from an analytics standpoint. So We'll have some other folks in there, but I think the analytics is a big part of it. And that's, I think, from what we've seen, a key element of the continuous optimization. So I think people should understand, optimization is not exactly, I did it once and I got everything out of it. You do it, and then you continue to build on it and continue to get more and more benefits as you get more data and you can make better decisions. So we'll cover that in April.
Yeah, and Chris, and businesses change, right? So your business goals and challenges, or your geography, or whatever, there's some changes that happen there, and so it's always good to revisit those optimization tuning projects so that you can get the best out of your solutions.
I know Kenny's done a lot with analytics, and we're going to do more to try to get him more data, and the same with Jose and his team. So
yeah, we totally utilize it. We've created a bunch of reports with Chris's team's help of getting data so that we can throw it in Power BI or something to get not only our internal teams information but our customers information, and utilizing that, and also to build better routes, because it's a ever changing, every day it's something different, and if you're not looking at it with that view, you're gonna be successful for a month or two, and then after that it'll start to fall apart and people won't be buying into it or stop using it. So
yeah. Well, we're like I said, we're up against the timeline. Thanks to both of you, Jose and Kenny, and Chris, for helping to answer some questions here. We'll have another one of these next month and another one in May too. So if anybody has any questions, please feel free to reach back out to myself or Charlie or Chris, and this is recorded, so we will send the recording out. So if you guys had people in your team that weren't able to make it, they'll be able to listen to it. So yeah, this is our effort to continuously improve things. So thanks again, appreciate it, and we look forward to keeping on working with you.
thank you.
Awesome.
Thank
Thanks
you,
everybody. Thanks
Bye.
everybody that joined.
Bye-bye. Thanks.